Welcome to Leonard Springs Nature Day. We hope you're ready to watch and learn as we explore our local environments. Remember, you must follow along in your student journals and use the materials provided in your Nature Day activity kits to complete today's lesson. Let's start by defining the ecosystem we are studying. Forests consist not only of living or biotic components like trees, animals, plants, and other living things, but also of non living or abiotic components such as soil, water, air, and landforms. All of these components together make up a forest ecosystem. For the remainder of today's lesson, we are going to focus on the trees that inhabit our forests in Indiana. To learn more, let's visit one of our naturalists in a forest habitat now.
My name is Kate Cedar, and I am a Natural Resources Education Specialist with the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation. And today I'm working at the Forest Station. So, the Forest Station is where you come to learn about what makes up a forest, why it's important to us and to our environment, how different people might study the forest, and how you might figure out what trees you're standing under. So turn to pages 2 and 3 in your journal and we'll get started on our first topic. We chose to do a forestation out here in Leonard Springs because the forest is very important to us as people, to our environment, and to the creatures that inhabit our environment. Forests can do a lot for us. They are the lungs of the earth because they take in what we breathe out, CO2, and they expel what we breathe in, oxygen. So we want to protect the forest because it gives us that oxygen. There's also other things that come from the forest. When you think of a tree and what someone might get from a tree, people tend to think of wood products and maybe some paper products, since both are derived from wood or wood pulp. The other things that we can get from trees is our food sources. A lot of the fruits that we like to eat, such as apples or pears or persimmons, like here in Indiana, come from our forests or from trees that we have since cultivated to be part of our farms and agriculture. Things that might not be a direct effect to us, or we might not think as really necessary, but can be very important and helpful to us, is using the forest as a space to relax and exercise in. If you've ever had a tough day and maybe gone out on a walk in the nature, it can really help. It can really make us feel more connected at home, especially when we haven't been able to be outside as much. Now, one of the things that we might do to protect our forest is to study it. So we might try to figure out how well our trees are growing. Now, we can do that in 3 different ways. 2 of them I will show you, and 1 of them you'll be able to do yourselves. Now, the first one we do when a tree might have fallen down or a tree has to be removed, and then we can study it. So we get a tree cookie. It is a cross section of the trunk or a limb of the tree, and when we see a tree cookie, we can tell from the lines and the circles how well a tree has grown over the years, and we might be able to tell some of the timeline of that tree and the forest around it. You all are going to be getting small tree cookies of your own where you can look and follow along on this lesson. When you see your tree cookie, you will notice that it has a circle of lines going from the middle to the outside. Each one of these lines represents 1 year of growth for the tree. Now, this tree cookie has a little bit of a hole in the middle, and that's because as the tree grows, the inside wood becomes dead wood. Now, that means that the living part of the tree is mostly this outside part, right here, where it keeps adding growth year after year. And the inside part, the dead wood, helps support that tree, kind of like how our bones support us. So when you see the dark stripe that is thicker, the thicker stripe is where there was more growth. So the thin stripe might mean there was less growth that year. This could be due to a variety of things, such as a drought or some other natural occurrence in the forest. More than likely, the middle rings tend to be thicker or wider than the outside rings because trees tend to grow most rapidly during the first years of their life as they're trying to grow up towards the forest, from the forest floor up towards the sun. You might be able to spot other things that's happening in your tree. For instance, I can spot a part where the tree used to have a limb and then lost that limb. You might also spot some scars on your tree from where there might have been a fire or it might have gotten damaged from something. As you go out, you'll notice there's this difference right here, the outer bark of a tree and the inner bark of a tree. Now, this outer bark is like our skin. It protects the tree from injuries and it protects it from infection. Whenever a tree loses its bark, it can get sick because of that. Just like if you get a cut on yourself, you want to make sure it stays washed and clean so that you don't get sick. This is why we encourage people to not carve into trees, because that carving can allow the tree to get sick. Especially trees that might have their bark stripped away from them, that causes that living layer of tree to dry out, and that could end up killing the tree. Now, take some time to look at your small tree cookie and count the number of rings and see how old your tree was. Can you spot anything else on your tree cookie? And what do you think it means? One of the ways that we can get similar data to our tree cookie while a tree is still alive is to take a tree core. Foresters will use a tree core to take a small sample of wood from the center of the tree out. And then they can slide it out and look at the rings on that tree core, similar to how they look at on a tree cookie. They can see the growth pattern of the trees and anything else that might be going on with it. So this is a great way to get that data while making sure that the tree is still alive.
The final way we can track tree growth is by measuring the width of a tree.
Foresters and other people who manage trees might take a measurement called diameter at breast height, otherwise known as DBH. Now, when they talk about breast height, it's up on your chest, and most people that were doing this were lumberjacks or people that harvested trees, and so they were a little bit bigger and taller than most of us. So the DBH tends to be around 4 feet. So think about where 4 feet is on you and get up to that tree around that point.
Now let's discuss how to take the DBH measurement of a tree. Note that you should have received a printed sheet with instructions on how to create your own DBH measuring tape. You will need a ruler, calculator, and marker to add measurements to the flagging tape provided.
You're going to take your tape. You might need someone to help you with this if you're doing a particularly large tree. And you're going to put it around your tree. Make sure you're using the side of the tape that will convert the circumference of the tree, the measurement all the way around the tree, to the diameter of the tree, which is how far across the tree is or how wide it is. For this measuring tape, instead of going from the very end, you're going to be going from the line that's right here, where that starts. And when I look down, it seems as though this tree is about 20 inches across. Now, that is the diameter, and if I wanted to get the radius, it would be half of that. So the radius for this tree is 10 inches from the center of this tree to the outside. Make sure that you're writing this down in your student journal you're going to be trying to get the dBH for 4 trees and do some of that math to get your diameter and then get your radius. We've been measuring the diameter at breast height of these trees at Leonard Springs for 12 years. So we'll be able to see how the trees have grown over all that time and what years might have been better years than others.
Now that we understand the importance of trees and how researchers study their growth, let's discuss how we identify different kinds of tree species.
What most people use to tell different tree species apart are their leaves. Now, this could be whether or not the leaf is a single leaf or a compound leaf, whether the leaf has smooth or toothed edges, or the general shape of that leaf. Now, the coloration of the leaf can change on the same tree, so you don't want to pay attention to color, and depending on the size of the tree, the leaves could be all the way up or all the way down, but it could be on the same species of tree. So what to look out for is the shape of the leaf. Now, I'm going to go through some examples of different leaves and how you would look at them to see which tree they are. So this leaf came from a tree that had gray and smooth bark. And if we look at the leaf, we can see that the veins of the leaf, which is this center part, the little parts coming out, they are one up the middle, and then they come off on the sides evenly. It has a generic leaf shape, kind of an oval. It's pointed at the end, and the edges of the leaf have little teeth, meaning they have little points all along the edge. Now, with these facts, I can look at my leaf guide or my tree ID guide, one of which you will be getting, and I can figure out that this leaf, that tree it came from, is most likely a beech tree. How I remember beech tree is that beech has 2 E's and it has teeth on the edge, and teeth has 2 E's as well. One of my favorite trees that we have out here in the woods is a little bit different from the rest. It actually has 3 different types of leaves that it grows. All of these leaves have rounded edges, but we like to think of them as 3 different kinds. We have the blade leaf, which is one shape. We have the mitten leaf, which comes out and looks like a mitten. And then we have what I call the ghost shape that comes out kind of like that. This tree has reddish orange bark, and if you've gotten a chance to smell one of the twigs when broken, it smells really nice. This is a sassafras tree, and some people can even make a tea out of the roots of the tree, and it's one of my favorites. These 2 leaves came from 2 different types of trees that share part of the same name. They're 2 different nut trees, and one of them has very sharp points. Unlike our beech tree, it has uneven veining. It goes up the middle and then it kind of goes out side to side. It has points all along the edge of its lobes. A lobe is when you might get a mass of leaf uneven around it. Most of the time, they can be symmetrical. So we have our sharp lobed leaf, and then from a similar tree, we have our leaf that has rounded lobes. These 2 trees are both oak trees, but our sharp leaf is our red oak, and our rounded leaf is our white oak. So if you saw them together, you might suspect they're from a similar tree, but they have their specific names. Our last tree is our state tree. So our state tree grows these really big, pretty blooms, and it has a lobed leaf, with 4 different lobes. They are more rounded lobes, and they tend to be more symmetrical than our other lobed trees. This is our tulip poplar, and it is the state tree of Indiana.
At this point in the lesson, you should have completed everything on your forest station pages with the exception of the DBH chart on page 3. Now it's your turn to go outside and find 4 different trees to measure and identify using the materials provided in your Nature Day activity kit. Finally, as a bonus activity, use a blank piece of scratch paper and a crayon to make a leaf rubbing for each tree you studied. Take notice of subtle differences between them. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.